In the night, I find voice, singing out, make my choice.
The moment Leo Marquez stepped on the AGT stage, no one expected anything special, until his first note sent shockwaves through the entire theater. Judges froze. Simon stood mid-song. The crowd erupted. What this shy Filipino teen did next, it left everyone speechless. This is pure history in the making. The backstage area of America's Got Talent buzzed with its usual cocktail of nerves, excitement, and electricity in the air. Performers paced back and forth, stretching their hands, murmuring last-minute prayers, and adjusting costumes that glittered under the bright corridor lights. But in the middle of all that chaos stood someone who looked completely out of place, quiet, still, and almost invisible. Leo Marquez, a slender 17-year-old Filipino teen with soft brown eyes, clutched a worn guitar pick between his fingers. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, and he definitely didn't look like the kind of contestant who would shake one of the biggest stages in the world. His jeans were faded, his shirt was plain, and his sneakers looked like they had walked far more miles than a teenager should have. But he wasn't thinking about any of that. He was thinking about his father. Just a year ago, Leo had lived a simple life in a tiny fishing village in Palawan. Every morning he woke to waves brushing the shoreline like a gentle whisper. His father, a fisherman with weathered hands and a calm smile, would sit with him by the water and hand him that same guitar pick he held now. "Anak," his father used to say, "your voice, it's a gift. One day the world will hear it." But tragedy has a habit of arriving without warning. A storm, fierce and merciless, dragged Leo's father away on a night that changed everything. After that, singing felt painful, like each note was a memory he didn't know how to carry. For months he barely touched music. But grief, in its strange way, eventually pushes people toward the very thing they're afraid of. And that's how Leo found himself here, backstage at AGT, gripping a pick that meant more to him than any trophy ever could. A gentle tap on his shoulder pulled him out of his thoughts. "Leo?" a young female producer said, offering him an encouraging smile. "You're up next." His stomach tightened. His breathing quickened. For a moment he wondered whether he should run, but then he slid the pick into his pocket, lifted his chin, and followed her down the narrow hallway toward the blinding lights of the stage. The sound of roaring applause shook the floor beneath his feet as the contestant before him finished their act. The stagehands moved quickly, clearing props and adjusting microphones. The air smelled faintly of sweat, metal, and something electric, something alive. And then the curtains parted, and Leo stepped through. Instant silence. The moment the audience saw the shy teenager standing alone under the towering AGT sign, the energy in the auditorium shifted. This wasn't a flashy act, no dancers, no costumes, no dramatic entrance, just a boy with a trembling breath and a story no one knew yet. The judges straightened in their seats. Simon Cowell peered at him with that familiar, unreadable expression, half curious, half doubtful. Heidi smiled warmly. Sophia gave him an encouraging nod. Howie leaned forward, sensing the boy's anxiety. "Hello there," Simon said, his British accent slicing cleanly through the silence. "What's your name?" Leo swallowed hard. "Leo Marquez," he answered, voice barely stable. "And where are you from, Leo?" Heidi asked sweetly. "Palawan, in the Philippines." A small wave of applause broke out from a few audience members, especially Filipinos scattered throughout the room. Simon studied him closely. "And what brings you all the way here?" Leo hesitated, his fingers curled slightly as if reaching for the pick in his pocket. Finally, he whispered, "I'm here to finish something my dad started. He always believed my voice had a place on a stage like this." The audience softened, their expressions shifting from curiosity to empathy. Simon tilted his head thoughtfully. "That's a beautiful reason," he said. Then, leaning forward, he added in a gentler tone, "Well, whenever you're ready." Leo nodded, steps shaky as he approached the center mark. The stage lights warmed his skin, bright and overwhelming. For a moment he closed his eyes. He imagined the shoreline. He imagined his father's smile. He imagined the waves rising to meet his voice. When he opened his eyes again, something inside him had shifted. He exhaled. The music cue began, and in the heartbeat just before he sang, the entire arena leaned in, unaware that they were seconds away from, witnessing something unforgettable. The first soft chords of Unchained Melody drifted across the AGT arena like a warm breeze. The audience settled into an expectant hush, the kind reserved for contestants who seemed sweet but forgettable. Even the judges wore mild expressions. Curious, polite, but far from expecting anything extraordinary. Then Leo lifted the microphone. His fingers trembled, but when the first note left his lips, it didn't sound nervous at all. It sounded otherworldly, a deep, velvety tone, unexpectedly, rich for someone so small, rolled through the massive auditorium. The note hovered, pure and controlled, echoing across walls built for legends. A soft gasp rippled through the audience. Sophia's eyes widened instantly. Heidi leaned closer to her desk. Howie mouthed a silent, surprised, "Whoa," but Simon didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He watched Leo with an intensity that said he had just heard something dangerously rare. Leo continued singing, and with each line his confidence grew. His voice wasn't just good. It carried a weight, a tremble of emotion that felt far too real for a teenager. Every high note soared like it was carried by memories. Every low note burned with quiet heartbreak. It didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a confession. By the time he reached the second verse, the air in the room had shifted, no longer polite, no longer passive. The audience leaned forward, drawn in by the rawness of his voice. Some wiped tears without understanding why. His voice had that effect. It reached inside the listener and pulled something loose. Midway through the song, Leo closed his eyes as if seeing something no one else could. Maybe he saw a shoreline. Maybe he saw his father's face glowing with pride. Whatever it was, the music responded. His pitch rose, smooth, piercing, breathtaking. He hit a high note with such purity that the crowd gasped in unison. He held it. Longer, longer, and then released it so gently it felt like the room exhaled with him. Sophia grabbed Heidi's arm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered loudly. Heidi nodded, eyes glistening. Leo's voice kept climbing, building emotional pressure, like a film soundtrack peaking at the climax. Each phrase landed with precision, each vibrato trembling like a heartbeat. And then, the bridge, the part of the song most singers fear. Leo stepped forward, took a breath, and unleashed a run so clean and soaring it felt impossible. It rose like a wave, bigger, stronger, higher. And that was when it happened. Simon Cowell pushed his chair back and stood. Mid-song. The entire audience screamed. The cameras scrambled to catch it. Judges rarely stand before the performance ends. "Simon? Almost never." He lifted one hand, motioning for the music to stop. The backing track faded abruptly. Leo froze, eyes wide, terrified he had done something wrong. He clutched the microphone with both hands, chest rising and falling. The silence was crushing. A few audience members murmured in confusion. Leo's voice cracked slightly as he whispered, "Did I mess up?" Simon walked toward him, shaking his head slowly, but not in disappointment, in disbelief. "No," he said loudly enough for the entire arena to hear. "You didn't mess up." He pointed at Leo with a sharp, decisive gesture. "You blew this place apart." The crowd erupted into cheers so loud the stage shook. Simon continued, voice firm but filled with emotion. "Leo, in all my years on this show, I have never, and I mean never, heard a voice like yours come out of someone so young." Leo covered his mouth with one hand, eyes glistening. "You're not singing a song," Simon said. "You're telling a story. I felt every line, every note, every piece of your heart." He paused, letting the silence thicken. "That," Simon declared, "was history." The audience roared again. People standing, shouting, clapping, crying. Some waved Filipino flags. Others simply stared, stunned by the magic they had just witnessed. Leo's knees weakened. He blinked rapidly, trying to understand if this was real. Heidi stood too, gazing at him with pure awe. "That voice," she whispered into her mic, "doesn't come around often." Sophia nodded vigorously. "This boy is a miracle." Howie added, "You didn't sing the song, you reinvented it." Leo trembled, overwhelmed. He wasn't just performing. He wasn't just auditioning. He had changed the air, shifted the energy, captured the hearts of thousands in a single breath. And as the noise of the cheering crowd thundered around him, it became clear. This was only the beginning. The arena was still vibrating from Simon's shocking mid-song interruption. The audience remained on their feet, cheering, screaming, waving signs and flags with an energy that felt almost unreal. Golden lights danced across the stage as the cameras swung around, capturing every stunned face in the crowd. Leo stood frozen at center stage. His cheeks were wet with tears he didn't even remember shedding. His legs trembled, barely holding him upright. Moments ago, he had been just another nervous teenager hoping to make his dad proud. Now the entire room was chanting his name like he was already a superstar. Leo, 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 Leo! The chant rolled through the arena like thunder, thousands of voices, thousands of people who, only minutes earlier, had expected nothing from him. Leo blinked, still in shock. Sophia was the first to speak. She leaned into her mic, her voice warm but trembling with emotion. Leo, what you just did here wasn't normal. It wasn't even just great. It was magical. Heidi nodded, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. When you sang, it felt like time stopped, like the whole world got quiet just to listen to you. Howie leaned forward, smiling with genuine awe. You know what I loved most? You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't trying to be perfect. You were just honest. That's why we felt it. Leo lowered his gaze for a moment, overwhelmed. When he spoke, his voice was fragile, almost childlike. I didn't think anyone would care. I just wanted to sing for my dad tonight. That single sentence sent a wave of emotion through the room. A few audience members sobbed openly. Even the judges shifted uncomfortably, trying not to break on national television. Then Simon stepped forward. The room fell instantly silent. He rested his arms on the desk, leaning in toward Leo like a mentor addressing someone with extraordinary potential. Leo, he said slowly, I've done this show for many, many years. I've seen thousands of auditions. Thousands. He paused, but very few, very, very few, hit me the way yours just did. Leo swallowed, tears returning. You said you wanted to finish something your father started. Simon continued. Well, tonight you didn't just finish it. He pointed at the stage beneath Leo's feet. You completed his dream. A soft gasp filled the room. Leo pressed a hand against his chest, feeling the weight of those words. He suddenly imagined his father standing there with him. The warmth of his smile, the pride in his eyes. Simon turned to the other judges. I don't think any of us are going to forget what we heard tonight. Heidi nodded immediately. No chance. Sophia raised her hand. Never, Howie added. He's a once-in-a-generation voice. But Simon wasn't done. He pushed back his chair and stood again, slowly, deliberately. And as he walked toward the golden buzzer, the entire audience erupted into screams. They knew what was coming. Leo didn't. Leo's breath hitched. His hands shook uncontrollably. Heart pounded so hard he felt it in his throat. Simon placed both hands on the golden buzzer, looked Leo directly in the eyes and said, Leo Marquez, this moment belongs to you. Boom! The golden buzzer exploded. Confetti burst from the ceiling in a massive golden storm. Shimmering flakes spiraled through the air, catching the light and transforming the entire arena into a glittering dreamscape. Leo gasped and stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the beauty and intensity of it all. The confetti poured down like a blessing, coating his hair, his clothes, his trembling hands. Sophia and Heidi shot out of their seats and rushed onto the stage. Come here, sweetheart, Heidi shouted as she pulled him into a warm embrace. Sophia hugged him from the other side, lifting him slightly off the floor in excitement. Howie joined next, patting Leo's shoulder. You earned every second of this, kid. But Simon approached last. He walked calmly through the shower of gold, looking at Leo not as a contestant, but as someone he truly believed in. When he reached him, he rested a hand on Leo's shoulder. Your father, Simon said softly, would be so proud of you. That broke him. Leo covered his face as he sobbed into Simon's chest. Not from sadness, but from release, from victory, from finally feeling seen. The audience chanted louder than ever. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. Golden confetti swirled around them in endless waves. And as Leo lifted his head, face glowing with tears and gold dust, one thing was clear. He wasn't just a contestant anymore. He was the moment, the story, the history Simon Cowell had declared. This was the beginning of something far bigger than he ever imagined.